Good evening. Apparently, this is live. So, as per usual, apologise to those of you who are catching this on the replay and seeing me not looking at the screen. I'm currently scrolling through my phone to check that this is live, which, whoops, where we go? There we can see that it's live, although it doesn't appear to be playing. It looks like I'm frozen, pulling a very bizarre face. That's not a good look, is it? That's not a look I should cultivate. That's what I look like when my teeth fall out. I said when my teeth fall out. Hopefully that will never, ever happen. But who knows? Any kind of wondrousness can happen. Let's just double check that this is going live. Yes, and now I can hear myself, which I did not need to do. But what I do want to do is share this and encourage you to do the same. So I'm going to share this to my page. Come and join the conversation. There we go. Look, I didn't even attempt to talk and type at the same time and still managed to misspell conversation quite dramatically. So good evening for those of you that are joining live, and good evening to those of you that are watching on the replay. You now have my undivided attention. I do apologize. How are you doing this evening? I haven't decided to chop all my hair off. I've just decided to tidy it up, tie it up even, because that's easier than trying to sort it out in its disarray at the moment. How are you doing? Honestly, how are things for you? A good evening, Caroline. You just jumped the gun as I was about to invite people to say hello. Look at that. Caroline is there already. Good evening. But do drop down and say hi. Join Caroline and myself. Say hi to Caroline, hi to me. And join the conversation. The whole point, and we've had some quite phenomenal conversations, well, in my experience, from my viewpoint rather, over the last few weeks, because people have seemed to have been beautifully interactive on the chat, which is really lovely, because not only do you guys challenge me, question me, ask for more. Good evening, Victoria. You also are there to help each other out, and I find that really fascinating as well. I'm just reading a book which I was bought for Christmas, not last year, the year before, and I finally got around to reading it. She says, trying to drag it out. Finally got around to reading this, and I have to say that I'm finding some of the studies that are in there and the insights in there really fascinating around the value of community, and the value of communities coming together and how we can help each other make the changes that we want to make. And that, to me, is one of the main purposes of doing these lives every Monday night. If you haven't heard me whittle on about these, then where have you been? Good evening, Chris. How are you, my lovely? Be nice to have a catch up with you at some point, find out how you are, where you are, what you're up to, and all that. So I'm just going to share this because this is kind of strange. Look, watch this. Can you see this as well? Can you see the stripes in my mug are showing something behind me? Like a piano. Can you see that? Or is that, am I losing the plot? Is that just me? A piano and then a fireplace that goes all the way up. Can you see that? Let me know if you can see that, or whether it is just me that can see it, because it's very strange as far as I'm concerned. If I had a blue screen behind me or green screen behind me, I could understand. But I don't. Can you see it, Chris? I'm guessing by you saying ooh that you can see it. It's rather bizarre. Yes, exclamation mark. Yes, it's not me. I haven't lost the plot completely then. Oh wow, yes, you can see it as well, Victoria. See, it's not just me. Anyone give me any insights as to what that is? StreamYard, what are you up to for that to be? It makes sense as to why that picture there goes a bit funny at the side, because that's obviously showing some kind of green screeny thing behind. But as I say, I haven't got a green screen behind me. That is my actual wall. So that's a bit strange. But anyway, so yeah, honestly, how are you? How are you doing? I've been speaking to a lot of the clients that I've been working with, well, since the beginning of the year, but specifically more so from those from March. And there seems to be quite an interesting change that they're talking about. I'm not sure what S means, Chris. Is that yes? Is that short for yes? I've no idea. But what I'm noticing that's really quite interesting is that a lot of people are experiencing, and they're using different words, but ambiguity, limbo, uncertainty. It's like kind of like this weird. It's a little bit like that space between Christmas and New Year, where you kind of don't know what to do with that bit, and only there's presents to play around with then, and you know you're going back to work at a certain point. Whereas this bit of what's going on at the moment is really quite strange. So spooky, your mug, yes. I genuinely am interested, because there are so many different possibilities of where you're at right now. You might be excited about the changes. You may be on furlough and loving it, hating it. You might be just gone on furlough for the first time, maybe coming back to work for the first time after a few weeks off. There may be family tensions. There may be family love-ins in a good way. There could be all sorts of things that's going on. And I'm just looking at how best can I support you, whether you're watching this live right now or on the recordings. Not specifically in tonight's conversation, but in the sense of topics for future conversations coming up. And maybe you've got something, if you want to direct message me, because you don't want to put it in the chat, then please do. It's just me that reads it. I am a company of one. So it's just me that reads it. So you haven't got to worry about anybody else reading it. But it would be really interesting to know how things are for you, how you're getting on. That is really kind of odd with the whole mug thing. Very strange. And aside from this strange, weird, ambiguous limbic system that we're in at this moment in time, is there anything specific that you would like covered in these conversations? I think I've got about another 2 weeks of topics that people have specifically asked for. But if you have something that you would like to know about or ask about, then please do get in contact with me. Okay, so this evening, if you saw my message that went out, what about when you've been working 24/7 and long hours, but how you have to go outside again and it's weird, scary or uncertain? Okay, so okay, can I have a think about that then, Sarah, and look at maybe I'll do something around specifically change and around all of that to link in with that. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. And thank you for ever long hours and how hard you've been working. And I know that due to the nature of the work that I do, there are a lot of people who are on this page and that work within various public sectors and various different organisations that have been working extremely long hours over the last few weeks. So thank you to those, wherever you are and whatever you've been doing where that's concerned. So I'll have a look at that, Sarah. And you've not done anything but work. Yeah, okay. So I shall look at what I can do around that. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so if you have seen my, I'm pretty sure that you're not horrid. You make feel horrid. And I get that. Believe me, I had some pretty hefty corona curves a couple of weeks ago and have made some strong choices and have made some little subtle changes. I tell you what, there is a really great book. Now, where have I put it? That's one of my exercises done for the day, reaching round. Oh, look, it's going to do it on this, or you're going to be able to see it. Look, it's somebody else's living room. What is that? Look, completely around their living room. That is really weird. Obviously, Dr. Chatterjee's book. I can't find another way of doing it. That is so strange. Look, I've suddenly got a piano in my house. A grand piano at that. Very bizarre. Okay, so Dr. Chatterjee's book. You can't see it properly now. It's really good for, it says 5 there, which you can't really see. There we go. Feel better in 5 minutes. Sarah, I would really recommend getting that. But I know, Chris, it's weird, isn't it? You're laughing at the fact that I've got another lounge. I'm glad it's making you laugh, Sarah. Look, grand piano, new. I have got a fireplace in my house, but it doesn't look like it came from the 1980s. This is a really good book, Sarah, because there's loads of things in here. It's written by a doctor. It's got loads of things in here that are again, very strange look. That's freaking me out. I'm going to put the book down. But it's really good because they're 5-minute changes that you can implement even the busiest of schedules. Now, I'm not specifically doing his 5-minute exercises, but because I'm doing another 5-minute exercise thing, and I'm literally is 5 minutes. I'm not doing any more than that. It's a 5-minute exercise routine every day, and I'm already noticing significant differences, and I'm only on day 4. So that to me is the way forward. The smallest changes that you can implement and make them consistent. So for me, I've been meditating solidly. I will get onto the jealousy, a weird psyche lady. I will get onto the jealousy thing, but I will partly answer Sarah's thing here. I've been meditating every morning for about the last 3.5 years, and maybe a bit longer actually. And the thing that has helped me is that make it an immediate thing that I do. I get up, my alarm goes off, I get up, I go to the bathroom, come back, sit back in bed, and I meditate. That's it. That's my rule. And it works because it's that routine that I have to do it. There's no negotiation with that. And that book, Sarah, gives you a way in of doing things that are no more than 5 minutes in length in time, attach them to something else, which is something I've been doing for years, but he's a doctor and it's in a book, so it must be true, right? But it makes it a lot easier, especially if you're feeling uncomfortable and you're working really long hours. That'll at least give you an opportunity to do something, and you can do it around when you are, if you put the kettle on, you could do your exercise then, or, brush your teeth, then do it, or do it and then brush your teeth. Find a little way to do that. And hopefully that will start making something else. But I'll look at how I can word something around, I feel like I need to cover that up to drink it properly now, around change, Sarah, so that, and what to do where that's concerned when you've been working long hours or things have changed. So I'll get away from the weird piano sitting room that's behind me. It's my pleasure, Sarah. It's that kind of thing that is exactly what I want to be here to help people with. Because if I've got the information and it's to hand, then I will definitely share it. So jealousy. If you saw my, apologies for those of you who've been waiting for the last 12 minutes going, come on, woman, get to it. If you saw the message that I sent out, there is one person who asked me directly about this a few weeks back now on the live. I'm not sure if they're here this evening, so I know if they're not here, they will watch it at some point because they follow this all the time. So you'll know if you're the one who wrote this on here. And then weirdly, I had a period of time where 2 other people said pretty much the same thing around jealousy. Now, jealousy is actually not something that I've spoken that much about. It's not something that's come up much in conversation with clients, but as it had come up on here, I thought I would give it a go and have a look at what would that conversation be. So I would love to know, just with a Y or a yes or a thumbs up, if you have ever experienced jealousy, however that may have shown up. So if we did it on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is you're completely zen and not bothered, and 10 is that you're kind of bunny boiler psycho end. I'm not asking you to put the number, but if you've had jealousy on any scale along there at any point, just give me a thumbs up or a yes in the comments section below, because I think it's, if I was in a room full of people, I would be saying to you, okay, so hands up those of you who have ever experienced any kind of jealousy. And that would definitely happen. So, and I think it's really, and it's not just so that you can see the StreamYard logo better, but I think it's really important for other people to recognize that it's not just them. Chris has said it, thumbs up yes many times. It's important for all of us to recognize that it happens, and it can happen in various ways. Now, for me, I'm not a specialist in this. I've only done some surface research, Sarah says, obvs. So this is just my initial take, and I would love your thoughts. I would love to hear what you've got to say about this as well. So the first things that came up to me were the connections around jealousy and comparison. So I've kind of separated them out a little bit. Excuse me. And the first thing that I want to talk about really in relation to jealousy is that when you've got any kind of thinking or behavior that is coming up around something like that, that it's really important and worth taking a step back. First of all, it's about having awareness that that's going on. So it may be that you've said something snarky to somebody, or it may be that you're, kind of sneakily trying to check their phone. I'm looking at my phone as if you can see it, but sneakily trying to check somebody's phone. What are they up to? Or maybe you're listening in on conversations, or things like that. Is just see that behavior, notice that you're doing it first, because I think that jealousy is it's a symptom of something that's going on underneath. But to be able to start peeling it back, what you need to do is see that behavior initially happening. Good evening, those of you. Just had a flurry of loads of people come on. Do drop down and say hi. And look, you can see my weird grand piano in the background. Look, that's freaking me and other people out. So I think that one of the key things with change, and it doesn't matter what it is that we're wanting to change, is first of all, we need to have awareness. We need to have an awareness of what's going on, of what's happening, and see that. Not, I think very often we hey Debs, we get hooked into the thing, and it's usually afterwards that we kind of like, oh, I've got jealous in this instance. So the more you can see it happening and notice it in the moment of, oh, okay, there's jealousy behavior going on, however that's showing up for you, and then start to peel it back. Because then what you want to be looking at is, okay, well, what am I looking to do with that behavior? What am I looking to do? And the words that then came up for me around jealousy were around that it's about possession, it's about that ownership, it's about controlling, and it's also about suspicion. They were the things that were coming up for me as to what jealousy could be thinking. So if jealousy is the behavior, this could be behind it, or the first step behind it, of I need to possess that thing, or that thing is mine, or that person is mine, and therefore I need to control it, and I'm suspicious because they're doing this, and actually I don't want them to be doing that, I want them to be doing this. And so there's this alteration that's going on, and that we're trying to manipulate that environment. And then it's taking another step back and checking in, well, what's going on for me in order for that sequence to be going on. And I'm going to speak about it in what I think this bit is, in a very generic way, because of the time frame that I have, and I'm speaking to a group of people, and I don't know where you're at and what's going on for you. But for me, this is going into our insecurities, and it's our own insecurities that's then driving those behaviors. Now, what then can happen very often, I think, is that we look to stop doing the behavior. Oh, I mustn't be jealous, or I mustn't behave in that way, or I mustn't be controlling, or I mustn't be possessive. Whatever it is, we look to stop doing that thing, rather than taking a step back and back and back and back and go, okay, well, what's the insecurity that's going on here? Because it's that bit that's the driving force, that's the agenda behind it. If I'm experiencing an insecurity and it's triggering that, it's like, well, if I remove this, then all of that won't happen. Whereas most of the time we kind of start down here, when in fact we need to keep tracing it back to there. Does this make sense? I'm not sure. Would you say that gaslighting is something that you do because of jealousy, Sarah? Is that what you mean? I know what gaslighting is, but I haven't done a lot of studying or thinking around it, to be fair. Hey Debs, look, I've got a grand piano in my house. How fun's that? You didn't know that, did you? Neither did I until this evening. So to me, and again, I'm speaking in very generic terms here, that when we get back to those insecurities and start looking at those insecurities, the familiar ones that come up over and over again with clients, and I know these myself, are around these insecurities about, not being good enough. And it could be, instead of not good enough, it could be I'm not smart enough, thin enough, pretty enough, handsome enough. There's so many different inserts that you could put in there. Lovable enough, I'm not lovable, I'm unlovable, I'm not adequate, I'm not worthy. And that there's an element of distrust of other people. And that's what causes that suspicion and that kind of like checking in all the time. So we need to become aware. And the challenge is, what I think what happens is that we don't want to see our own insecurity. We stay focused on that external behavior, that gaslighting behavior, or whatever that jealousy behavior may be. And because that happens, and then we look to change that, as opposed to looking at this. But that's going to be the driver beneath things over and over again. So that's why I'm encouraging you to look at this part first. So I know that I've had conversations with people before around, if their perception is that if they don't have trust of somebody, and it's usually whoever they would get into an intimate relationship with, that's where a lot of this trust stuff does and doesn't happen, if that makes sense. So whatever your persuasion is to gender-wise, that doesn't really matter. It's just when it's to do with that intimate, that closeness, because then we look to possess that person in a relationship in some way, shape, or form. And if we have a sense of mistrust, or we don't trust, we distrust other people, very often what we can end up looking to do is that they have to prove that they are trustworthy to us. And I've known lots of people before in various relationships where they've been desperately trying to prove that they're trustworthy. Look, I am, here's the proof, have my phone, read through my messages, have a look at my emails, whatever it is, that they're trying to prove that. But when there is that level of mistrust, that the filter with I've just had a flash to a relationship that I had probably over 20 years ago, where I was at one of my highest points of insecurity. And I just saw his face then, and I remember that moment of me not trusting anything he said. It didn't matter what he said. I was so insecure and didn't trust anybody, not even myself. And that's the point. That's the key point with this, that it didn't matter what proof he gave me to prove that he was trustworthy. I just dismissed it anyway, because, and that's why it's such a problem, because that's not what I mean. What I mean is, that's why we can't look to them to trust, to prove the trust. We have to work on ourselves. We have to look at this ourselves. And there is no way on this planet that I would be able to give an overview of how to do that in a matter of 30 minutes, especially as I'm talking to people that I don't know where you're at with this. So that would be a much deeper conversation. But to me, that's where it's important to understand is what's the attachment to somebody else. I mean, jealousy usually is about somebody else. It's usually about an intimate relationship, and that intimate relationship may not necessarily be sexual, because it can be that's a new word, just invented a new word. It could be to do with your siblings, is what I was trying to say, or somebody else that's close with you within a relationship in that sense. So it may not be a sexually intimate relationship, but it could be jealousy in that sense. So let me know if that makes sense, whilst I'm just having a look at but experience with an abused person made me feel like, I'm assuming that means like I was jealous. Yeah, and if you having been with in relationships with various people who I was in a relationship once with a guy who I was so naive to think that he was phoning me because he really liked me, but actually what he was doing, he was very jealous, and he was very controlling, actually, and was checking up on me. And what I didn't realize is what he was doing was he was thinking that I was behaving the way that he was behaving, whereas that's not the way I behave at all. And he was the one that was having affairs left, right, and center. So it's very interesting that when somebody, and don't get me wrong, I'm not condoning somebody's behavior, but we can have an understanding of where they may be if they are behaving in that way. And we need to have the self-respect to just go, that may be the way that you want to behave, and that may be how you think a good relationship should be, but that's not my rules around relationship. And therefore get out as soon as you safely can do so, and get any help that you need to with any of the many wonderful organizations that are out there to help you if you are in an unsafe environment. It's more paranoia when someone makes you feel like that, I think. Yeah, and I think that's where, you know, I've been having a lot of conversations with a number of my dear friends who do great work around helping people with intuition and helping people with connection. And I think that we have been, unfortunately, conditioned not to trust our intuition. We've not been given the space to learn to do that. And over probably the last 2-3 years, I've been working more on trusting my intuition. That's a big part of my meditation. It's a big part in me around food, listening to my body. What does my body need? Does my body need rest? Does my body need to go for a run? My body never needs to go for a run, but it might need to move. So it might need to dance or go for a big long walk or whatever it may be. The mind doesn't want to run, the body might. But it's about that trusting and that instinct. And I think that then when it comes to that, we can step away with what you're saying, Sarah, about that paranoia. When we are insecure, I think we are then giving away our power. And that enables somebody else to manipulate and play on those insecurities. And I'm not saying that everyone does it. But I think that we learn this very primarily as kids. You know, I think it's something that's innate, but a lot of us, because we learn about empathy and we learn about how to connect with people and start learning about relationships. And I think that we don't take responsibility for ourselves in relationships. We blame the other person. I certainly spent a number of years doing this, of whenever anything went wrong in a relationship, well, it was their fault. And never looked at it and going, okay, well, where was I complicit in that? What did I do? Because even when you've been in a relationship, or we've been in relationship, I don't want to exclude myself from this. When we've been in relationship with somebody who may be a liar, who may be an adulterer, who may be abusive, who may be whatever it is, if we are not being responsible for ourselves and doing what we can to safely get out of that relationship, then we are being complicit in that poor behavior. So it's not easy, I get that, but we have to recognize that because the thing that I notice is that when I treat myself with respect, when I trust myself, when I take responsibility for myself, other people treat me differently. It's just, other people treat me massively differently. When I put those boundaries in place and I stick with those boundaries and go, no, these are my rules. These are my rules. This is what happens. Then that's it. You know, the people respect that. They get it. They may not like it, but they get it. And we have to do that for ourselves. And then when we do that, we learn to trust ourselves more. It may be uncomfortable at first, but the more that we do that, we're then going to attract somebody, especially if we're talking about long-term relationships, we're going to attract somebody that is going to meet us at that point rather than at our insecure point. Does this make sense? Let me know if this makes sense. Good evening, Rob. The mind is very powerful when it comes to relationships. The mind is very powerful, full stop. And life is relationships. We're constantly relating to everything. I'm relating to this camera. I'm relating to this piece of paper. I'm relating to the very crazy grand piano behind me, which is not there. It's still freaking me out. It's weird. But it's all about relationships. And most importantly, the relationship that we avoid is what's going on with us. And that's the key relationship, because it's the only forever relationship. It's the only 24/7 relationship. So when you work on that and you make sure that you are in a good relationship up here, then you're going to have different relationships out here that are far more helpful, far more loving, far kinder, and you're going to kind of meet people. And I don't just mean intimate partners, but just other people. I find it very strange when people give me free stuff, free coffees, I get free coffees quite often, and I don't ask for them. I just get given them. And I think part of that is just because I'm nice to people, because I'm nice to myself. I never used to be, but I desperately wanted free stuff years ago. But I behave in a different way, and because I'm in a much better relationship up here, it still needs work, and I'm still doing that work. But because I'm in that, a much better conversation is going on with the thinking mind. That's where things shift. Caroline says, I've been in a toxic relationship, put my confidence down, and got out of it now. Congratulations, Caroline, because that's not easy. I've been in crappy relationships myself. So, you know, it's not easy to get out of it, but it's important because that's where that self-respect is. I think what's important is from that conversation, confidence side of things, Caroline, is that we need to recognize that we have to take responsibility for leaving ourselves in that situation. I'm not condoning the behavior of somebody who has been rude, abusive, manipulative, controlling, lying, whatever it is. I'm not condoning that behavior. What I am saying is that we need to take responsibility, not in an abusive way and not telling ourselves off and not chastising ourselves, but just that, okay, well, what was it? What was I thinking about myself that made me think that I deserved that, or that I needed to stay in that? What was the thinking that made it that was okay? Because if you can see that and start working on that, you can start to challenge that and go, well, hang on a second, no, that's not true. No, hang on a second, I don't deserve that, or I'm going to put a boundary in place for that. Otherwise, we just keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. And whether that's about leaving one job and going to the next, or one relationship and going to the next, you know, it's just going to keep snowballing where that's concerned. Sarah says, yes, 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 yes. I think I've put them all in there. Does this make sense? And is it helpful? Because it's a very broad topic. And as I say, it's not something that I have gone into depth with, other than in one-to-one conversations. But even then, it's not been a huge topic, I have to say. But I'm glad that makes sense and see your point. Honestly, Caroline, because okay, I'll be very truthful. I don't think I've ever said this publicly on a video before, but here we go. My relationship, my marriage, there was a lot of lying that happened. And it would be very easy for me to sit here and go, that was his fault. And he did lie. And I was complicit in kind of doing that la la la, and maybe filtering those lies out. There was no maybe. I just wasn't aware that I was doing it at times. And until it came smack in my face and realized that I was complicit in that, that's when the work can really start. That's when I can really make a difference for myself. And until that point, I'm only ever going to attract that kind of behavior back into my life. So it's not about abusing yourself or having a go or beating yourself up because you got it wrong. You had to have that lesson in order to grow through it. It's crappy, but that's how life works. But if you can take that, Caroline, and go, okay, what thinking kept me there so that I never do that again? And that's when you can learn and make some differences for yourself. So in a nutshell, I was going to talk about comparison, but hey ho, I think all the piano talk has taken me way over time. Maybe I'll do another one on comparison in the next few weeks. But to me, the main thing, filtering lies isn't easy. Of course it isn't, Caroline, I'm looking at the wrong thing, Sarah. I get that, but this goes back to that connection, and something that I'm looking at. So at the moment, the world stage seems to me to be a very confusing one as to what's really going on. I genuinely don't know, but I'm not going to let the fact that I don't know and that I don't know what's truth and what's not stop me from looking and stop me from questioning. And I think that's the thing, is that I can't remember who I read this by, but they said they asked a Zen master a question. And the Zen master, the question they asked the Zen master is, what's real? And the Zen master said, that which does not change. And for me, what I'm looking at in the grand world stage of what's going on, and therefore trying to work out what are the lies that we're being told, what are the truths that we're being told, is that keep questioning. Well, could that be true? Or is it coming from that angle, or that angle, or that angle, or that angle? And that which does not change is going to be closer to real, if there's a permanence to it. And what I'm noticing is there's very little permanence, and that's a bit like, but that sensation is not going to stop me from looking. I'm going to keep looking so that I can learn discernment. Again, discernment was not something that I was taught. It's something that I've been looking into, and I would highly encourage you all to do. Discernment, question, and keep looking where that's concerned. You are insightful, thank you. I think we all do that. Not sure what that was in reference to, but thank you, Sarah. Comparison would be good. That's the kind of jealousy I know I fall into. Okay, I'll definitely do something on comparison, Chris. And yet get that. Not sure what that was in relation to, Sarah, either, but that's great. So for me, in a nutshell, what I'm talking about where jealousy is concerned is notice the behaviors you do, whatever they may be, and however subtly they may show up. And keep stepping back to get curious for yourself. Okay, so what's going on for me? What's happening for me? And look at your insecurities. Get really clear on your insecurities. And in relation to that, then that's where the work needs to start, is around that part, and get clarity in what they are so that you can challenge those insecurities to be able to move forward with those. So how does that time, how can it be 20 to 8 already? That's crazy. As I say, I'm pretty sure the piano talk at the beginning, yeah, it was a brilliant quote, isn't it, Victoria? I've just made a note of what's real, that which does not change. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And a beautiful Zen kind of quote, which is like, what do you mean? Well, everything's changing, right? It's the only thing that's consistent is change. It's a big topic in and of itself, but yeah, it's a great quote. Let me know if you've got any other topics. I'm hoping that you have found, let me know if you have found this useful this evening around jealousy. I will put another one in the diary around comparison. Yeah, let me know if there's any other specific topics that you would like me to talk about. Otherwise, I'm just going to go and carry on with the themes, but it's always great when it comes from you guys. I don't have to name you, but I think it's important that it comes from you, because then I know that I'm meeting you with where you're at and what your needs are at this moment in time. So thank you very much for joining me this evening. You're very welcome, Sarah. Sarah, go and order yourself a copy of this. Go and get yourself a piano, Sarah. Look, oh, Dr. Chatterjee's Chat of the Piano. That was good. There we go. Look, go and order yourself a copy of this. It's such a good book, and so helpful if you want to make those little changes as well. And it actually really ties in with the other book I showed earlier about habit. I'm glad you found it useful, Caroline, and great that you will be able to be here right from the start. So thank you all very much for joining me this evening. Please, please, please remember to like the page, play a tune on the piano. I do my best. I don't even think I could do chopsticks anymore, Sarah. Please remember to share the video. If you found it useful, you're bound to know somebody else that would find it useful as well. Please make sure that you like the page. If you haven't done so already, invite your friends, family, the neighbor to like the page as well. And yeah, if you've got any specific topics that you would like me to cover, then please do let me know. Remember, if you're watching this on recording and you've made it this far, you can still interact with me. I know I didn't say that earlier, but I will come on and interact. I love this pod. Oh, you love Dr. Chatterjee's podcast. I know you do. Yes, I look forward to catching up with you next week. Take care of yourselves, and please, 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 with all that's going on in the world, please be kind to yourselves and as kind and understanding as you possibly can to others, because you never know what's going on for them as well. So take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you next week. Bye now.